Welcome to Current. I'm your host, Isadora Grace. Today, I want to talk about music. We know music can uplift us, soothe us, bring back memories, and bring us comfort. When we listen to rock, it takes us to a place that's primal and dark. It forces us to ask the question, are we seeing the soul of the artist, or are we seeing a reflection of ourselves? Today, we'll be looking at two songs in particular. These songs were written by Jimmy Pagliacci. 10 years ago, he fronted a band called The Clowns. They had a song that broke the top 100 called Tell All the People Walking. This isn't one of the songs I wanted to talk to you about today. And we all know things didn't end well. We've seen the footage from the Borderlands incident, but 10 years later, we still don't know why. To help us answer that question, I was able to interview band member Mike Davis, bassist, longtime manager Joe Walsh, and, for the first time on record since the incident, Jimmy Pagliacci's ex-wife and band member, Marion Kellner. First, some background. Like many bands, the Clowns didn't start out as the Clowns. They began as the Mysterious Wanderers. Jimmy Pagliacci was James Kellner back then, and what would become a dark comedy rock group was a fusion jam band. First, we'll hear from Joe Walsh.
They were undeniably great musicians, no getting around that. But they didn't have anything that an audience really wanted to see. I mean, they just diddle away on those weird, obscure scales. But they were set on being a band, and I couldn't talk them out of it. So I got them a few gigs thinking that if they bombed a few times, then maybe they'd listen to my idea about being a session band, but that all changed with Tell All the People.
It wasn't a great song.
That's Mike Davis, the band's bassist.
It was cute at best. A little a cappella gospel number because he was sick of being visited by missionaries.
To be honest, I was about to drop him, but then that song.
At first he thought it was funny.
That's Marion Kellner, Jimmy's first wife. She also played keyboards in the Mystic Wanderers and the Clowns.
But every show, that's what they wanted to hear. We were getting offered better gigs and festivals, but he was being pressured to write more songs like that. That's when he announced we'd be changing the name and costumes.
Costumes, yeah. What a stupid idea, right? We didn't all go along with the whole clown theme right away. But once people started showing up, and the women, I was like, pass me the makeup.
At this point, they might have taken some time off to retool the act. But these were improvisational musicians. They improvise. Jimmy would lead, and they would follow, making up the music as they went along, the way jazz musicians do. It was an impressive feat, and it meant they could adapt very quickly.
The turnover was quick, crazy quick. They had the new act ready in a matter of days. Jimmy would write a song, and the rest would just follow his lead.
The band now known as The Clowns was growing in popularity. They had an album out, and were set to begin a national tour. As with so many bands at this point in their careers, there was a change in the lineup.
I didn't actually know I was fired. No one actually told me. No one ever sat me down and said, "You're out." I wasn't feeling well and was told to sit out a few gigs. Next thing I know, they're on tour. A few weeks later, divorce papers arrived.
Yeah, we should have said something. You get caught up in everything. But at that point, we were just reacting to everything, you know? Forget to be human.
Nothing against Marion, but the band needed some more sex appeal, and that's where Nan came in.
Nan Vogel was a struggling model and musician when she was brought into the group by their manager, Joe.
Oh, and suddenly, Jimmy and Nan were a couple. And with all the other stuff going around, that's just not the weirdest thing. So he just kind of accepted it.
But the act still wasn't quite right. Jimmy and his lead guitarist, Art McPherson, weren't satisfied with the amount of attention the band was getting. They decided to take the act in a decidedly different direction.
It was a nightmare.
Their stage act became a dark, twisted cartoon. Music critics were brought on stage and decapitated. A woman had an abortion on stage as a way to end her relationship with a guy.
Well, it seemed funny at the time.
The changes had the effect Art and Jimmy wanted. The sexy keyboard player and outrageous stage show brought the band press, attention, and airplay. Suddenly the Clowns were a hot property, and frontman Jimmy was a particularly hot property. But was he ever really satisfied with that?
James was an artist. He wanted to create beautiful things. But all anyone wanted was Jimmy Pagliacci.
He was making money. Ridiculous amounts of money. He's selling out huge venues. And that's hard to walk away from.
And then there was Art.
As in many successful bands, there was tension between Art as lead guitarist and Jimmy as lead singer about the direction of the band. And of course, because they were all young and popular and attractive, the tabloids were always speculating about something going on between Art and Nan, even though Nan was with Jimmy.
And that's just it. It was a game that the three of them played on the media. They set up this elaborate trick to make it seem like they were running around behind Jimmy's back.
All of the stress and tension culminated the night of their Borderlands appearance.
The night of Borderlands TV show. I didn't see anything really. I just heard Jimmy screaming at someone. Then I saw him come from behind a curtain and lock himself in the dressing room. Then I saw Art and Nan. They looked... At the time I just thought it was part of the act, that they were playing it up for the crew, but...
Jimmy locked himself in his dressing room for 2 hours. He kept the band, crew, and audience waiting that entire time. Think about it. A band, a few dozen crew members, and 200 audience members were just sitting and waiting for one man to show up. And when he did, we weren't mad. We burst into applause. And this is the first song I wanted to talk about tonight. The last song Jimmy Pagliacci sang in public.
Contrary to popular belief, it was not planned. Like Jimmy played and we followed.
I'm just another spoiled celebritard, bitching about his life. The world was handed to me on a plate, but I discovered way too late that it was everything I hate. Ain't it funny after all? In the valley, I begged the audience for a laugh. But now from dawn all through the day, from my therapist to your cousin Ray, well, they laugh at everything I say. Ain't it funny after all? A car that shook like maracas, held together with duct tape and a wish. Now I've cars quiet as a mouse and fast as thunder. There's no need to grouse, 'cause the paparazzi won't let me leave my house. Ain't it funny after all? I had love beyond understanding, a companion and a friend who helped me through the roughest bits, smoothed the bad times with a savage wit. And I traded her in for a nice set of tits. Ain't it funny after all? Bitching about his life. The world was handed to me on gonna play it, but I discovered we're too late that it was everything I hate it funny after.
At the end of the song, Jimmy savagely attacked Nan and Art with his guitar.
And people ask us how we could let that happen. But when you see it, you see someone split a head open, it doesn't feel real. It was so... I mean, how could you really expect that?
By the time Mike and Joe realized what was happening and tried to stop Jimmy, it was too late for Art and Nan. As Mike and Joe tried to restrain Jimmy, Jimmy pulled a knife from his jacket and stabbed himself in the jugular. The show never aired, except for some bootlegs that made the rounds. Most of those left out the gruesome parts. As you might have realized by now, I was at that show. I was in the audience, a college freshman. My friends and I cheered for Jimmy, and we laughed. We thought it was all part of the act. There were people there that night who left convinced that it was all one of the band's elaborate sick jokes. But it wasn't. As a journalist, I'm supposed to remain impartial. I'm not supposed to be part of the story. But ever since then, there have been nagging questions. How much of what happened was because of Jimmy? And how much was because of us, the audience? The ones who cheered, who demanded more and more and more. But I told you in the beginning that this was about 2 songs, didn't I?
I heard about it on the news next day. I was in shock. It was until 2, maybe 3 days later, I listened to my machine. It was James. He didn't say anything. He left me this song. I assume he recorded it before it happened.
Millions of people have watched some version of Jimmy Pagliacci's final performance. But until now, only one person has ever heard the final performance of James Kellner.
Please forgive me what I've done. Please forgive what I will do. Please forgive me everything you've been through. I can see that you were right. You were right about everything. There's a price to pay for being the king. Never meant to hurt you. Never meant to make you cry. Never meant to say goodbye. Goodbye.
For Current, this is Isadora Grace.